Good evening, Yard Arts R Us Painters Club. I'm going to do my live tonight on our gnome with his Easter basket. I was supposed to do it last Sunday, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you. I had to go to Kentucky for a funeral. My nephew, who was only 42 years old, died of a kidney infection. He had been very ill for the last year. He was on a liver transplant list and had never, because of COVID and things, that a liver never came up, but his kidneys had started giving him trouble, and he had a dialysis several times, and so he got a kidney infection, and it just was more than his poor body could stand. He was just the sweetest soul, and he's 42. It's just so hard when someone young leaves this earth. He's a good Christian. I know where he is. I know I'll see him again someday. So I do rejoice in that, but I feel so sorry for his wife and his children. He has 4 daughters and 2 sons, and it's really it's just really going to be hard for them to learn to live without him. He was such a good daddy. And my sister-in-law, losing a son is just, or losing a child, it's just not supposed to happen that way. We're supposed to die first, and then our children after us. So I was glad I got to go and be with my family. I got home before the bad weather hits. They're supposed to have a really bad ice storm in Kentucky, and we're supposed to have the cold weather coming in, so I was happy to be home. We had an uneventful drive, and that's always good, because when you drive through Arkansas, you never know what you're going to have. So tonight I'm going to paint our gnome bunny, our gnome Easter rabbit. He thinks he's a rabbit because he's got rabbit ears. He's a gnome. He's got his Easter basket. But here is the gnome Easter bunny. And we're going to do him tonight. You all know that blue is my favorite color. So when I decided how I was going to paint him, I wanted to paint him this beautiful sky blue that we have. It is number 1. And it is just the most gorgeous blue color that ever is. But it's sky blue number 1. And then the shading that I used with sky blue was teal number 7. Of course, I have to put lots of pattern on there, and so I wanted yellow dots, so I used number 13, light yellow, for my polka dots. And I wanted a pattern, a different pattern for his hat. It's kind of like one of those Bavarian stocking caps, and so I wanted that knit-looking pattern for his hat, so I used the light yellow, number 13, and then I added number 10, lime green, and to contrast with that lime green, I used light purple, number 27, for my stripes, and then for the little darker areas, I used the shading purple, number 82, and I used my teal, number 7, again, for these crisscrosses over the top of the yellow for the hat. His ears were the white. We always use lots of white. Where is my white? I don't see my white. There's my white. Number 35 is the white. So I use number 35 for the white, for his beard, and for his ears. Then I shaded his ears with beard blue, number 3. But I wanted the ears to be different than his beard. So I shaded the beard with number 24 gray. I used I used light yellow for the brim of his hat, and I used shading yellow, which is number 14, for shading the yellow. His nose was flesh, number 29. and to shade it, I use number 30 shading flesh. Down here for his basket, I can get his basket over here in the, all right, on his basket, I used reindeer brown, number 32, and I shaded it with shading brown, number 34. And then the eggs in it, I made a light pink egg with medium blue, number 4 polka dots. I did a yellow egg, and I did lime green zigzags on it. And then I did a light purple egg with pink, shocking pink, number 26 stripes on it. His hands were flesh, number 29, and shading flesh, number 30. His shoes were black, number 37. I did all my CNC lines with number 37 black, and then my white highlights, which were number 35. Most of the time, the brushes that I use, I kind of always use the same brushes. I use a flat, and like this is a number 6, but I use a flat. Now for base coating, to base coat, I use a big mop brush or a big flat. This one is a 1-inch. To base coat, like all this blue, all the white, I use this big one. It goes faster. I put 2 coats of my color. I had base coated the entire thing. I sprayed the entire thing white because I had so much white for his beard, so I sprayed the whole thing white as a base coat. Then I only had to put 1 layer of white paint as my base coat, but I did put 2 layers of blue for a base coat. But when I do, I use this big 1-inch flat. You can use any kind of a big mop brush, a round one or a flat one. But for a lot of the, like in the yellow, I would use this number 6. For these stripes, I use this number 6 for the width because it's about a 1/2 inch wide. So it's a nice size. Sometimes for my shading, I will use an angled brush. Let's put it right there so you can see it. It makes that shading go a little bit easier because I can use that angle to curve around, and so I like these angle brushes. And this one's a number 10. I have it a little bit smaller. This one's a number 8, but again, it's an angle brush. The script liners, I use several different script liners and several different rounds. Like for my polka dots, I used this round that is number 3. This one is a number 2 round, and a lot of times I use it for the wider CNC lines because it will go down into that groove and it will lay down quite a bit of paint. For the detailed ones, I use my long script liner, the number 2. This one I didn't use number 2 quite as much because I didn't have as much detail. There's not as much detail for this gnome, but I like this number 2 script liner. I also use my other script liner. I don't think I used it on this one. Let's see if I can find it real quick to show you my real long script liner that I got at the shop. And I may have it over at the sink where I washed it. Looks like I probably do. I don't see it in my brush bucket. Okay, so I'll put this aside and we'll get started painting. This one is a big one, and so it has the stake on the back with our screws in it. I did take the stake off so that I could paint it, and then I'll paint the back, and then I'll put the stake back on. The bigger ones have the fence post stakes rather than the cold roll steel. So you can see I base coated with my blue, white, yellow, light pink. I did my reindeer brown for my eggs. So all of that is base coated. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone too so that I see if you all are with me and maybe what we have any questions or anything. I'm not real good about answering those questions, and I haven't seen it come up yet. Maybe it hasn't come up. I see some on my iPad, but it's too far away. I'm too blind to see that, so I had to move all of my don't know if it's going to come up for me and I can see the comments or not. Maybe not. I was trying to find it, but probably not. I can answer your questions, and we've painted together enough that you kind of know what I'm doing anyway. And if you have a real question about something, I'll come back on later and answer it for you. And usually Marion or Ashley will answer it too. All right, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to get my gray and I'm going to shade my beard. So I've got my gray. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to come around and you could use the beard blue for the beard shading and then use the gray on the ears, but I just think you need to make the ears look different than the beard. And I think of gnomes as being old souls or being around a long time, so I like the idea of having the beard more gray, I guess you'd say. And we've got a CNC line here, so I'm going to go right down that CNC line with my gray, and it'll come on both sides of it, and then I can put my white, excuse me, my black highlight in too. I'm going to connect those. They're not connected, but I'm going to connect them. I was so cold in Kentucky. You know, being here, and we just don't have that cold weather where it just bites into you. And I grew up there, but it's hard to get used to it again. And it wasn't all that cold, but it's a damp cold. And plus, we don't have the clothes for it. We're not used to my jeans didn't feel warm enough. Okay, as I come up on each one of his beards, I want to make this into a point on each side as I come up. Now, here is his mustache, and his mustache has CNC lines on it. So I'm going to go on the outside of his mustache to shade and coming up. So I'm doing the outside of the mustache. Got a CNC cut line right here to get him some lines inside. I've got one here. I came down a little bit longer. That's where you can have your individuality. Come around here. I'm going to go around the bottom of his nose. I'm going to come on the outside here. to come up here because I've got blue here, so I still want a gray line there. Now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add some more wispy. I'm going to let the brush kind of do the work for me and just add some more lines in here for my beard. Just like that. Now, when I look at that in the monitor, this one line right here is really heavy and it sticks out to me. So I need to make some other lines that are going to be that heavy because you don't want one just really sticking out. So I'm going to come into this one and I'm going to add a heavier line. So see, that line is not nearly as heavy looking as it was, but it's all on this side, so I still need a heavier one on this side. You want your paint to balance, let's say. Now, see that how much more balanced that looks when you have that heavier line. So I'm going to let that dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to take my teal, number 7, and I'm going to turn him upside down for you all so I can get to the bottom, and I'm going to shade the bottom half of his clothing. I want to get my hand in it. I'm going to come along the edge of his beard. And here's his sleeve. I'm going to go around his sleeve. I'm going to go along the outside edge. Give me a detail there. Along the edge of his hand here, the edge of the basket. All the way. Now there's a cut line here from the CNC that is, this cloth goes over his shoe and you get that fold line in there. And it also comes over here with a CNC line. So I'm going to come in for that line. Come along the bottom. This one goes pretty fast. There's not tons of detail on him, so he goes pretty fast. Now I want to put a line here and a line down in here. For some. Now I'm going to move him around so I can get to him a little bit better. You can see how those lines are coming in. both sides of that CNC line there because I want a little bit of shading on both sides of that line. And I know his sleeve has a curve here, so I want to put a curve in. Okay, now I'm up to his hat. So I'm going to come around for his hat. And I did this first before I did the texture. And then I had to come back in and add some of these shading lines after I got my texture on there. Now you could do it either way, but I like to keep the same color paint in the brush until I'm done with it and then wash my brush. So I decided to do this shading first and then come back and do the detail on my hat. And you may not want to do the detail on the hat. You may want to just leave it just like, you may want to leave it solid. You may want to not put the polka dots on there. That's going to be kind of up to you. I painted this in kind of solid because it is behind the ears and it's not a very big area. So rather than have just a little bitty sliver of my sky blue showing, I painted it in solid. Now I'm not going to put any lines on this like I did on the bottom of his clothing because I want to come in and put some texture and some pattern on this hat. Okay, so that's all my shading for number 7 teal on my sky blue. So I'm pretty much done with these for right now. Now on my yellow, I use shading yellow for this brim of his hat. So while I've got my shading yellow, my brush, I'm going to use that same brush. I'm going to come around for this hat. You could put some texture in this brim if you wanted to, but I wanted it to contrast against the other. Now I'm going to come down to my yellow egg that's in my basket. Since I already have shading yellow, I want to shade that egg that's in my basket because I have a yellow egg, a pink egg, and a purple egg. So I'm putting my shading yellow on my yellow egg. Now I'm going to take my shading brown because I have my basket and I'm going to shade it with the shading brown. You could use nutmeg for your shading on this basket if you wanted to. It's a little darker brown, but I think the shading brown looks real good with it. So I'm going to come up and get the basket part first, the handle I guess you'd say. And I painted the void part in my basket white. You could do black, but it's what you see through the handle, but I just left it white. come along my CNC lines. I'm getting it so it's on both sides of them, the horizontal ones. And then there's vertical ones, so I'm coming down with my vertical ones. And I want a point, I guess you would say, at the beginning and the end, unless they run into the line below it. But I make it be a point. So I have my basket shaded. Now I'm going to take my shading flesh. Here's my shading flesh. I've got a hand right here. I'm using that same brush. It's a good width. So I'm just putting it in the water and washing it out and keep using it. The little bit of water that stays in it, it helps blend that out a little bit and make it flow just a little bit easier. So there's that hand. And I'll come over here to this one. And there's that hand. Then I'm going to come up here to his nose. Now I've got to be a little bit careful here because this is still wet, so I don't want to put my hand in it. So I'm going to have to keep my brush pretty vertical. So that I don't, and there's a screw right there, so I want to come across the top of that screw. But I want it to be even enough that that nose shading is going to look good. So that's all my shading flesh. So next it will be my beard blue on my ears. But you know, I think before I do that, I'm going to use my shading pink. That's my daughter coming home, and so she wanted to talk to me, and she didn't know I was going to do a live tonight, so I'll talk to her later. But she's coming in from work, and she usually calls when she comes in to let me know how the day's gone and what all is going on. So I'm going to shade these inside the ears with my shading pink. And I want to get that pretty smooth, and then I want just a little streak down the middle. So I'll come over here to this one. There in that point, and then just a little streak down the middle. Now, while I've still got that pink open, I'm going to come down here for my egg, because I got a pink egg, and I want to shade that pink egg. And it won't take much, but my shading purple for my other egg, and I'm just going to leave that pink on there and dip it into my purple, so I'll have almost a different color. But then I have my eggs shaded. And now I need to come up to my beard blue and do my ears beard blue. Now, use that other brush. So I'm using my script liner on the ears. I didn't want quite the heavier line. I can make it wider by just pressing down on the script liner, but at the bottom of the ear there, it needs to be thinner because I don't have a lot of space and I don't want to take up so much of it. So, like right in here, I want a fairly narrow line. So if I use a small script liner, I can not put much pressure on the tip of it, so I can get a much narrower line. And then as I come up the ear, I've got more space, so I can press down and I can get a wider line. Those screws on the back sometimes catch. Now I also want to come down on the outside of the pink. With my beard blue. It pick up just a tiny bit of that pink. It's not dry, but I don't think it's going to make any difference because it blends in with that gray enough. It just makes that gray a funnier gray color, or beard blue color, which is really a gray. It's a blue-gray color. Okay, so I want to come up here, and I want to come down here. So now I have my beard blue for my ears done. Okay, while this is drying up here, my teal is almost dry. But I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do some polka dots. Now, you could easily use a pouncer, and I need to get some smaller pouncers because I have used them up, and the ones I have are pretty big. And I had my polka dots, let me show you here. I had them quite a bit bigger, and I thought they were distracting, so I cut them down about half in size. I made these polka dots pretty big, and I just didn't like them big at all. So then I cut them down. They're about the size of a dime, is about what they are now. I probably had them more like a nickel, and I decided that was too big. So I'll show you how I do these polka dots when I don't have a pouncer. Pouncing with that foam brush is really the easiest way, and I like doing it that way, but I have run out of them and I've got to go get some more. But I take a flat brush that's about, this one is probably 1/4 of an inch. It's a number 2. But I put a pretty good dab of paint on it, and then I just stand it up and twist it around. Just stand it and twist it. And it'll leave a little less paint right in the very center, but you can come back after that's dry and add just a touch of paint in that center again. But I just stand it up and then just twist it in a circle with it right straight up. And to me, that's one of the easiest ways of making a polka dot if you don't have one of those foam pounce or foam daubers. Some people call them daubers. I always call them a pouncer because I would pounce the paint on there. But you just twist that flat brush, just roll it through your fingers, just like that, and you'll have a nice circle. And occasionally I'll slip and I'll get a little wonky jog. Wonky jog? Do y'all ever use that word, wonky jog? That's probably Kentucky jog. Kentucky word, wonky jog. Little off center. And I just randomly put my polka dots. You don't have to put any pattern on him. He's cute without it. But I like to jazz it up with a little bit more pattern. I think the pattern elevates them just a little bit. Makes them, I don't know, just a cut above. When you're hand painting something, if you can add a little bit of pattern or a little bit of texture somehow, it really makes it pop. But I just stand that brush straight up and twist it. And you can do that with a flat square brush. And just put your paint in on it. And quite a bit of paint. You don't want to wipe the paint off. And there's my polka dots. Didn't take long. All right, now I wanted this stocking cap to have that Nordic look to it, because gnomes are from Sweden or Norway, or that's where they originated. So I wanted a cap, a stocking cap that was similar, I guess you would say, to one that you would see in Switzerland or Norway or Sweden or whatever. Oh, I was going to use it with my wider one. So I'm going to get my wider flat brush that's about, it's about a 1/2 inch. I'll have to look. So this is a little, almost like a ball shape here at the end. So I used that to think that was the ball. So the first stripe is going to be right above that. and I want it to curve so I just used the width of the brush, and then I came up probably a good 2 inches, and I did another one, and I let it curve. And then I came up another probably 2.5 inches, and I curved it again. And I don't want it to get all past into my ear. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've got the 3 stripes on the hat. Then I needed one on the top of the hat, and this is a little less area, I guess, easy to see, but these curve, so I want this one to curve here too. So I'm going to start right, I'll come down a little bit right in here and let it curve over. So I've got those 3 stripes done on my hat. If you think they're too thin, you can let them dry, and you can put a second coat of the yellow on that stripe if you want to. Now I took my smaller flat brush, the one I used for, where is it? The one I used for my polka dots, and I did the same thing with a stripe in lime green. So I took my lime green and I came up and I made the same curve, but a little bit closer. And because the brush is a little narrower, a little narrower. So there's my lime green. Then I take my light purple and my script liner, and it works better when that's dry. I'm going to go ahead and do it and just try to be real careful. But I'm going to line right along the yellow and not get my arm in it. With my purple. Okay. So that really needs to dry before you put paint on top of it. I took my shading purple and I made a line above my lime green, but I let a little bit of the blue show. Okay. I also also took this purple and I put a line below the yellow. So I'm kind of outlining that yellow. Kind of a dark light, dark light. And then I put little dots of dark purple along the edge of my light purple. I just dipped my brush in and just touched it. Now the last thing I did was take my teal and I made my stitching, some diagonal lines on my yellow. Kind of V shapes, I guess you'd say. I came up and down, up and down. Surprisingly, this is working out even though it is pretty wet. It's really better to let this dry in between. I'm just doing V shapes or M shapes or diagonal lines, however you would want to call it. Now, because I've got my teal, I can come back in and I can add my teal back. See, that's picking up, that's too wet. But over my shading, see, I can pick that back up and shade over the top of where I got on the edge. This is still too wet. It's picking the other color back up. I'll have to do that later. But you see, I can come back in and shade where I went over those colors. So I'll have to do that one later. Then on my eggs down here, I decorated the eggs. I did one of them. I think I might have put that on. I decorated the eggs. I did the pink one with polka dots. I did the purple one with two stripes, a stripe of pink and a stripe of dark purple. The yellow egg, I put a lime green chevron or zigzag on there with some red polka dots. So decorate your eggs any way that you want to. Then, and this one will have to dry in order for me to start outlining, because I've got way too much wet paint on there for us to outline it. But I did the black, just followed all the CNC lines. Every cut line I outlined with my, right in that groove with black. I added some black lines in my beard, and I kind of made them echo the gray ones that I'd already put in. Everywhere I had a gray one, I came out from it and I put a black one too. On my hands, then, after my black dried, I came back with my last white highlights, which really make it pop, and I added the white highlights on the hands on the shoes, on all the curves, the top of the hat, the nose. I added white highlights in the ears. See if you can see those. But you can see where I put the white highlights. Across the top of his hat here, down the side of his hat there. And on the eggs, put a curve on the eggs, all the same side, so it makes those eggs look like they're three-dimensional, and it looks like they're shining a little bit, like they've got a glossy coat on them. Now, I don't have the poly on this one yet. I think it makes it too reflective when we're showing it on the video, so I will poly it, I'll paint the back side, and then it'll be ready to put out in the yard. So I hope you enjoy this gnome bunny. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's going to show up good in the yard. You can make his clothes any color you want to. You don't have to do him in the blue. I think the pastel colors for Easter really look good, and you want something that will contrast with his white ears and the pink centers of his ears. But I think he's pretty cute, and he's a nice big size, so he's going to make a nice statement in your yard. I'll be back this next Sunday. I'm painting a cross that says "He is risen" with Easter lilies on it. I'm going to have to jump to it because I haven't even started it. So I'm going to have to really do some work here real quickly. But I hope you all have had fun tonight. I'm sorry I wasn't with you Sunday, but it was unavoidable. And hold your loved ones a little tighter because things can change in just a minute. You all have a great evening. Stay warm. We got that cold front coming in, so stay warm. Take care. Bye-bye.